At the end of 2008, there was no tribute or celebration game in the works for Sonic's 20th anniversary coming up in 2011. This issue was brought up to Sega leadership by the head of Sonic Team, Takashi Iizuka, and development on the project began shortly after. The game would be helmed by Hiroshi Miyamoto, who would serve as the game's director, and having previously worked on Sonic 06 and Sonic Riders, Hiroshi was no stranger to Sonic. Lead game designer on the project would be Yoshinobu Uba, who had previously been the daytime level designer on the HD version of Sonic Unleashed. And fun fact, Unleashed appears to have been Uba's first credit in the gaming industry, at least according to Moby Games. Art director Sachiko Kawamura would also join the team. She had also been art director on Sonic Unleashed and is the creator of the Chow. Breaking off script for just a second to say thank you very much from all of us for creating such a wonderful creature. The game's programming director would be Uta Sano, who had previously served as the senior programmer on Jet Set Radio and Shadow the Hedgehog, as well as also serving as a boss programmer for Sonic Unleashed. We got a lot of Sonic Unleashed alumni here. No wonder Sonic Generations turned out so good. And the soundtrack for Sonic Generations was mostly composed and arranged by Jun Sinoue, with additional contributions from Richard Jocks, Naofumi Hataya, Hideki Naganuma, Kenichi Tokoi, Tomoya Otani, Crush 40, Circuit Freak, and Cash Cash. And of course, Takashi Iizuka himself stepped in as the game's producer. With the project confirmed and the team in place, Sonic Team had roughly 3 years to prepare something special to celebrate the impending anniversary. While the second and so far final game in the Sonic Storybook series and Sonic Colors were intended to appeal to younger gamers and the casual demographic, Sonic Team wanted something different for the 20th anniversary title. They wanted a game that captured the series' greatness across its entire history, something that would appeal to core Sonic fans just as much as the new generation. Early on in discussions, Iizuka suggested that the anniversary title should be a greatest hits of the series, incorporating classic moments from the past 2 decades of Sonic game history into a single modern experience. Leaked emails between Sega and Sony from September 2009 have revealed a possible working title for the project to be, and you're not gonna believe this, wait for it, Sonic Anniversary. Definitely a super creative title, but that leaked document also included some other juicy potential plans, such as a collector's edition that could include all old Sonic games on one Blu-ray disc, and PSN exclusive features like power-ups and different game modes. It's not clear if this exclusive content idea was ever worked on outside of this email, but it did suggest a mirrored levels game mode. Dude, I don't even think I got a keychain for pre-ordering this game. Where did all this stuff go? Further details were fairly light besides that, up until a loose-lipped Sega rep leaked a bunch of details about it at Madrid Game Fest in 2010. This is still early in development, but they disclosed details including that the game would be a compilation of the best levels of the saga adapted to current consoles, in both 2D and 3D, and that it was being developed for the Wii, PSP, PS3, and DS, with a 360 version still in talks. While the gameplay description held up, we know now that the platform lineup was far from correct. The project, which was finally revealed as Sonic Generations on April 18, 2011, only launched on the 360, PS3, PC, and 3DS initially. Evidence of the lost PSP port surfaced several years later thanks to obscure gamers and again in 2021, but there's no evidence to suggest how far along the Wii or DS versions got before they were cancelled, though it is possible that whatever work began on the DS version was later transferred over to the 3DS version. Thanks to an interview with Iizuka in the June 2011 edition of Nintendo Power, it was later understood that Sonic Team decided to develop the game using the PS3 and Xbox 360 as the lead consoles in order to target the highest visual fidelity possible. Having just released several games on the Wii, they were well aware of the system's limitations and didn't want to be held back on horsepower for such an important project. This decision allowed them to create stunning visuals for the time without worrying about the lowest common denominator, and the Wii, of course, got Sonic Colors, so everyone wins. Thanks to our channel members Maximus Metals and Sans. Going back to the development process, it was decided early on that the gameplay of the new Hedgehog engine-based project should be split into 2 different playstyles, one representing the older games and the other representing the modern. When the Sonic Colors writing duo of Ken Pontek and Warren Graff were brought on to pen the story for the new project, the concept of the game led to the creation of 2 separate Sonics, appropriately identified as Classic and Modern Sonic. The reigning king of Sonic VA, Roger Craig Smith, was tasked with bringing Modern Sonic to life, while Classic Sonic is entirely silent. However, according to Sega's Director of Strategy, Studio, and Community Relations, Aaron Weber, Classic Sonic came very close to having a voice actor, and one that would have gotten fans of the Sonic animated series pretty hyped at that. In Black Nerd Comedy's E3 2011 video, he caught up with Aaron and asked him specifically if Jaleel White would be voicing Classic Sonic, and this was his reply.
by Jaleel White. Classic Sonic actually won't have a voice.
Sorry, Jaleel. We tried.
However, if any voice were to be Classic Sonic, my personal favorite would be Jaleel. For Classic Sonic, it was either Jaleel or no voice at all. I grew up watching a lot of those old cartoons.
Yeah.
You know, and those are the cartoons where Jaleel, I think, did a fantastic job.
And as it turns out, Jaleel wasn't the only other voice actor considered for a Sonic role in Generations. At some point in development, voice actor Ryan Drummond was actually invited to re-audition for the role of Sonic. Drummond initially accepted the invitation and was given a warm welcome when he made it down to the Sega offices. They confirmed him for the role after the first meeting and even went as far as to say that the project was gonna be a great reunion. Unfortunately, when the actual offer made it to him through his agent, the terms were pretty insulting. Drummond spoke about the experience in a 2012 interview for thegamingliberty.com, and while he was hesitant to go too deep into all the details, he did have this to say when asked if he would ever return to play Sonic. "They asked me to leave my union, which is how I make a living, and do all kinds of work for no compensation, etc. It was a real slap in the face. I really don't see it ever happening. Sega is such a huge corporation with zillions of dollars, and they don't see any need to change the way they do things." He goes on to say that he wishes he had been voicing Sonic the whole time, but his relationship with Sega is over. In his own words, "If Sega ever decides to hire me again, the devil's making snow cones." This would explain why the only times Drummond has dusted off his Sonic voice have been for unofficial fan projects like Sonic and Tails R and the Red Sonic and Sonic Show. Aside from all the Sonics, a new character called the Time Eater was also created during the writing process. This villainous entity was introduced to tie all the areas together and provide an explanation for the two Sonics' era-hopping adventure to save their friends. And speaking of Sonic's friends, the list of characters that appear throughout the game in one form or another is extensive. We have Amy Rose, the Babylon Rogues, Jet the Hawk, Storm the Albatross, Wave the Swallow, Bark the Polar Bear, Bean the Dynamite, Big the Cat,
Blaze the Cat, Cheese, Chip, Eggman, Classic and Modern, but that's a little spoiler for you. Nelson, Tails, Husky, Modern, Cream, the Rabbit, Keyboard,
While everyone from Amy to Ray the Flying Squirrel and the Babylon Rogues make appearances in either their own side missions or in cameos as you progress through certain zones, Sonic Team never intended to have any of them be playable. They chose to focus on having only Modern and Classic Sonic as playable characters to maintain focus on the true purpose of the game itself, to celebrate 20 years of Sonic. With its concept and cast in place, the next hurdle for the project's development was probably the most difficult, figuring out which of the dozens and dozens of zones created throughout the franchise's history would make it into this celebration of all things Sonic. It was definitely a process, and going by the description of it given by Aaron Weber, you could even call it a sneaky process. The first step was conducting something that has played a large part in Sonic's history, going all the way back to the creation of his iconic design: internal polling. The resident Sonic fans of the many branches of Sega, Japan, Europe, and America were asked what their favorite levels were, and the resulting list gave Sonic Team a base of popular zones to work with. But what they did next was diabolical. Venturing over to Sonic's Facebook page, the same question was posed directly to the fans. What's your favorite Sonic level? Those who got involved with the poll thought they were just doing a little bit of fun community engagement, when in reality, they were playing a crucial role in the development of the next game in their favorite series. Very sneaky, Sonic Team. Very sneaky indeed. The final list of zones was made up of the most mentioned ones from the Facebook fan poll and the Sega internal polling, which was then divided into 3 separate eras: the Classic era, the Dreamcast era, and the Modern era. Each one was then completely reimagined in HD, and some of these stages even had new visual elements created for them to make them more dynamic in-game. Each stage has 2 separate versions, a 2.5D version for Classic Sonic and a full 3D version for Modern Sonic. This was a crucial aspect of the core gameplay concept, but in order to fully sell the idea and make it special, each version didn't just look different, they also had to feel different. Classic Sonic was designed to look, feel, and play as close to the original 2D games as possible, building on the physics created for Sonic 4. He's shorter, he's rounder, he's completely mute, and he can only run, jump, roll, and spin dash in place. On the other hand, Modern Sonic looks, feels, and plays almost exactly like the then-current iterations of the character, specifically from Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Colors. His zones shift between a 2.5D and full 3D presentation on the fly. Modern Sonic's boost is also back, working very similarly to how it worked in Sonic Colors and Sonic Unleashed. Except this time, you can refill your boost meter by collecting rings, breaking objects, pulling off tricks in the air, and defeating enemies. Modern Sonic is also rocking his iconic homing attack, which Classic Sonic is very jealous of. And surprisingly, but thankfully I suppose, Classic Sonic can actually unlock this ability as well through the skill shop later in the game. Obviously, playing with nostalgia was a big theme in development of Sonic Generations, but rather than just presenting something from the past with a new coat of paint, Sonic Team did a lot to mess with veteran players' expectations and surprise them in big ways. When comparing zones from classic games with their generation's counterparts, it's easy to see where things were changed, tweaked, or overhauled to provide a new experience that turns it up to 11 but still feels familiar. City Escape might be one of the best examples of this, because that murderous gun truck definitely didn't have saw blades in Sonic Adventure 2 or rockets that let it drive in the side of buildings, and I can't imagine the civilians are very happy that this is where their tax dollars are going to. That level is truly insane in Generations, and other levels received a similar level of creative remixing and reimagining. But seriously, that truck is terrifying. For the lead console version developed by Sonic Team, as well as the PC port handled by the British dev studio Devil's Details, the complete list of 9 zones and each era's culminating boss fight in the final game looked like this. Green Hill Zone, which interestingly enough has its first act replicate the layout from Green Hill Zone Act 1 from the original Sonic the Hedgehog. Chemical Plant Zone, which features that iconic purple goo called Megamac, kind of a strange name for a liquid that seems to be poisonous. SatAM would also use a similar term for a substance called Mega Muck, which Robotnik was able to successfully trap Sonic in on one occasion. Sky Sanctuary Zone, which also features references to Marble Garden Zone in the form of spinning top gimmicks, also features trees with grapes as a subtle nod to Knuckles' favorite food. Speed Highway has large parts of the level layouts reused in Sonic Frontiers. To be honest, a lot of Sonic Generations level layouts were reused in Sonic Frontiers. City Escape faithfully recreates many areas of the beloved Sonic Adventure 2 stage. This is also the stage where Mighty and Ray appear on missing posters, which is the first time either character had appeared in a Sonic game since the 90s. Seaside Hill also features elements of Ocean Palace, both stages originating from Sonic Heroes. And Crisis City is even here too. Sonic Team has never shied away from the Sonic 2006 characters. Well, I mean, except for Elise. Anyway, Blaze is also here, appearing in one of the challenge stages to put out fires for Sonic. Rooftop Run, which was already created in Hedgehog Engine, coming from Generation's direct predecessor, Sonic Unleashed. Despite this, the level gameplay is mostly unique, even if the level layout isn't itself always new. And last, but certainly least, we have Planet Wisp, which could also be said to be a Hedgehog Engine level coming from Sonic Colors, which actually used a scaled-back Hedgehog Engine on the Wii. Which is something that was not widely known at the time, and I'm gonna be real with you, might not be widely known now, because I didn't know that either. Regardless, this level would need to be recreated due to the jump to HD from the Wii. And man, that's unfortunate, because the original Planet Wisp, very good. Generations Planet Wisp, uh-oh. And speaking of the PC port, it initially might have appeared to be the superior version of the game due to access to a more consistent 60 FPS frame rate. This blew the consoles out of the water, considering the 360 was locked to 30 FPS, and the PS3 spent most of its time in that range despite an unlocked frame rate that allowed stuttery, infrequent jumps to 60 FPS. Unfortunately, most people who have played Sonic Generations on PC will tell you that it's far from the ideal experience. And we're talking about the original port, not the new HD version, of course. Issues with the game's configuration tool have prevented some from even playing the game, and overall poor optimization means that achieving a smooth 60 FPS was difficult or even impossible depending on the hardware. There was also this really frustrating controller glitch where if your controller disconnected at all, you would have to reset the game because it just couldn't handle hot swapping controllers. That was my least favorite part of the PC port, I would say. Those who were actually able to play Sonic Generations at the higher frame rate were introduced to a whole new category of 60 FPS exclusive glitches, some of which prevented progress from being made in many cases. Thanks to the community, various fixes have been created to improve performance, many of which can be easily implemented with Hedge Mod Manager, a handy-dandy Hedgehog Engine modding tool built on the back of Radford Hound's SLW Mod Manager. Check out GameFAQs Special's new Sonic the Hedgehog-inspired t-shirt and hoodie design, Speedboat Hedgie. It was designed by channel creator Overbound. Get one of these shirts on the GameFAQs Special channel page store and support the creation of more episodes like this. A shorter 3DS version of the game, featuring 7 zones, was also produced, which was directed by Sonic and the Black Knight director Totsu Kitano and created with the help of Sonic Team's frequent co-developer Dimps. This handheld version had an entirely different set of levels and major boss fights that were also split up into the same 3 eras. The Portable Classic Era, Green Hill from Sonic the Hedgehog, Casino Night from Sonic 2, Mushroom Hill from Sonic & Knuckles, and the major boss fight with Big Arm. The Dreamcast era looks a little bit different, with Emerald Coast from Sonic Adventure, Radical Highway from Sonic Adventure 2, and the major boss fight now being with the Bio Lizard in Sonic Adventure 2's Cannon's Core. And finally we have the modern era with Water Palace from Sonic Rush, that was a very nice inclusion. And Tropical Resort from Sonic Colors. No third zone for the modern era this time around. Though we do end things out with a very cool boss fight against Sonic Heroes Egg Emperor in the final fortress. Both the console and handheld versions of this game feature rival boss battles with Metal Sonic, Shadow the Hedgehog, and Silver the Hedgehog, although the zones they're encountered in differ from version to version. Both versions also include a face-off against the Time Eater as the climactic final battle. There were several other differences between the console and handheld versions of Generations besides the zones that were featured and the teams behind them. Some story beats are different, levels are selected from a menu rather than a hub world, rival battles are races rather than full-on fights, and the game's cast is simplified to only characters who are important to the cut-down version of the story. Those being modern and classic Sonic, Tails, Eggman, and the Time Eater, with the other Sonic friends only appearing in the intro and credit sequences. On top of that, the 3DS cart storage size prevented the handheld version from using voice-acted cutscenes. Instead, the story is delivered through text boxes and animated characters. Some of the exclusions and simplifications of Sonic Generations 3DS can be explained by hardware limitations, but there's also the glaring fact that, frankly, Dimps just wasn't given much time to make the game in the first place. If we figure that they got started on the 3DS version of Generations immediately after Sonic Colors DS shipped in November 2010, then that means they would have only had a year to make Sonic Generations' November 2011 launch date. However, it's likely that they had even less time than that. The existence of Generations 3DS was leaked in May 2011 by a GameStop release schedule, and it was later more or less confirmed by its appearance on a Sega earnings report, although it was removed from that very same report just a few days later. The first time we saw the game in any official capacity was at E3 in June 2011, with what many say was an alpha demo. That means it probably wasn't in development too long before its first appearance. Members of the community estimate Sonic Generations 3DS was cooking for just 6 to 8 months, which is definitely a time constraint, even for a handheld game. That possibility makes this version's strong points, like classic Sonic's physics, which many fans say are way better than the console version, even more impressive. While the 3DS ended up getting a lesser version overall by comparison, it did benefit from some exclusive features that made sense for the platform and its demographic. For instance, there are special 3DS-only challenges that you can unlock by using Street Pass or by coughing up some of your hard-earned play coins, and there's also a 2-player local wireless race mode. It also received its very own soundtrack, which was put together by Crush 40 member and longtime Sonic series composer Jun Senoue. Surprisingly, while Jun also created the awesome remixed versions of classic tracks for the console and PC version soundtrack, some of the music, specifically from the 3DS version, is regarded some of the best in the entire franchise. Check out the boss theme for the Big Arm boss battle to see why. Sonic Generations development was unfortunately still in the thick of it by the time Sonic's actual 20th anniversary arrived on June 23, 2011. However, Sega still marked the occasion and celebrated Sonic's birthday by releasing a beta demo of the most recognizable Sonic stage of all time, Green Hill Zone Act 1. This birthday beta demo featured classic Sonic, giving players their first taste of Generations' take on the gameplay that started it all. For whatever reason, Sega decided to make this demo a limited time engagement, only making it playable from June 23rd till July 12th. Due to some differences in the demo versus the final release, different physics, missing enemies, a neat static effect caused by breaking monitors open, we speculate that this demo's time-limited nature was set because this was a fairly early build. However, we came across a Sonic Stadium user who has an interesting alternate reason for the limitation. 20 years of Sonic, 20 days to celebrate the anniversary. Thankfully, Sonic fans weren't out of luck for long after the classic Sonic demo expired, because just a few months later in October, a second demo featuring modern Sonic was announced during Sega France's presentation at that year's Micromania Game Tour. A Sega rep directly told a room full of excited people that a new demo featuring modern Sonic would be available on October 19th, and the company stayed true to its word. A full demo featuring the modern and classic versions of Green Hill Zone hit Xbox Live Arcade exclusively for Gold members at first, followed by the PlayStation Network later on the 25th. Interestingly, this second demo might not have actually been all that new. Shortly after the release of the 20-day demo, it was discovered that it actually contained the code for Modern Sonic and his stage along with it, and using whatever magical methods they use, people were able to access both acts of Green Hill Zone to sample both versions of Sonic long before the second demo ever hit digital shelves. Further hacking of the original demo also allowed the use of classic Sonic's jump dash ability from the final game. Prior to the game's release, Sega of America held a fan convention called Sonic Boom 2011. This event was intended to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Sonic, and both Green Hill Classic and Modern were playable at this event. Takashi Iizuka and Hiroshi Miyamoto were on hand to announce the demo, and the event included appearances by Yuji Naka, Naoto Oshima, and Hirokazu Yasuhara. The event even included a concert by Crush 40 and a big ol' birthday cake for our best buddy Sonic. Sonic Boom would continue to be held yearly from 2011 to 2014, when it was replaced with another event for Sonic's 25th anniversary. Sonic Generations launched in November 2011. Japan received it an entire month later on December 1st. The game landed pretty solidly with both critics and fans, garnering high praise across outlets and putting up Metacritic scores in the mid to high 70s on most platforms. Most people generally agreed that Sonic Generations accomplished its goal of blending the old and new style of gameplay into one cohesive package, and the love for the series was apparent in all of the small details present in almost every level. Level design and the remixed classic tracks were also high points. It wasn't without issues though, as the console version suffered some frame rate and control issues, and the lack of the series' staple special stages bummed some fans out. With these small issues aside, Sonic Generations appeared to be a hit. Well, except for the 3DS version. That one sits at a Metacritic score of 66, due to having a short runtime, fewer stages, and other sacrifices we mentioned earlier. It did include special stages though, so at least it had that going for it. Sonic Generations went on to hold a special place in fans' hearts, with many counting it among the very best the series has to offer. By the most recent count, the title has sold more than 5 million copies worldwide across all versions. For more than a decade, Generations was mostly locked to the 7th generation consoles it was originally released on. The 360 version became backwards compatible with the Xbox One in 2018, and an additional update to the original game allowed it to run at 4K with higher frame rate on the Xbox Series consoles in November of 2021, a decade after it launched. A few years later, Sonic Generations would re-emerge for next-gen consoles with a graphical facelift, new levels, and a whole new protagonist. With the help of our supporters and YouTube ad revenue, the channel's growing, but we're really looking to push that growth even further. If we could get to 50 members, the channel would just about break even. Even just 20 members would make a huge difference. That would mean Overbound, myself, Andre, Willie, Michael, Robero, and everyone else who contributes could keep making these development videos for the foreseeable future. So if you want to support the creation of videos like the one you just watched, and get a bunch of perks such as seeing exclusive updates about episodes in the Discord and chatting with channel creator Overbound, along with getting a badge next to your name that helps your comments stand out easier in the comments section, and shoutouts in these videos, hit the join button below to help us keep going on the path to making videos that people will enjoy. And if you've liked listening to my voice for whatever reason, I'm Garrulous64. Hi! You can watch me with my Sonic stories and Sonic funnies over on my Garrulous64 channel, or something like that, ... That's what it says in the script. You wrote me pretty well here, that makes sense. I think I would say that. But as usual, thank you very much for having me on this episode. It's always a fun time to read out these scripts and be a part of these fun gaming history videos. And we'd like to thank each and every one of you for watching. And as always, this has been a Game Fact Special.